They may trade Pitts for a pack of Black and Miles. Please don't. His routes ain't lazy, he just need more targets than Ray McCloud. Please don't. The Falcons are entertaining offers for Kyle Pitts. Cobee throws stones at Lamar on the throne. Roddy and Julio reminisce on the absurdity of Shanahan. And we talk about the potential holes in the roster. Welcome to the Falcons Bird Bath by Point Game Official. I'm your host, C-Mo the C. Mitchell. You can find full episodes on YouTube at Point Game Official and Facebook at Point Game. And please hit that like and subscribe button if you like the content we're dropping over there. Also, me and the resident Falcon hater, J-Bo, who's on sabbatical right now. He's also an undercover black superhero with his own comic book line. But actually starting us a fantasy football league this year, a league of champions. So get in touch with us if you've actually won your fantasy football league before. We're looking at doing a 12-team half-point PPR this year. Now, moving on to the Falcons roster. It's a huge season for second-round picks Troy Andersen and Arnold Ebiketie, as well as third-round pick D'Angelo Malone. If you're looking at the roster projections right now, ESPN, they have Divine Deablo penciled in as the starting linebacker next to Caden Ellis, and they have Troy Andersen on the bench. They've also got Rukaroro and David Onyemata on the defensive line starting. They have Zach Harrison on the bench, and they have Morgan Fox starting. If you look at the Falcons' official website, they don't have any defensive lineman starters, and they don't have a second middle linebacker penciled in at all. I love the competition that we're going to have in camp coming up. As of right now, Troy Andersen hadn't been in OTAs, and Divine Deablo has been out there. And honestly, that's why they signed Divine Deablo. Man, that's a pretty awesome name, by the way. Troy Andersen hadn't been available a lot over the last few years, and if I'm a betting man, I think that Divine Deablo is going to beat him out in camp as well, too. Just because, if nothing else, he's got more reps and just been playing more than Troy Andersen has over the course of his NFL career. Troy Andersen has been hurt a great deal of the time. He just seems a bit fragile. And of all the draft picks that they've made so far, this might be the biggest regret that they might have had because he's been a bit of a project player. Former quarterback moved to linebacker. And while he's got the speed and athleticism you like to see, and I think he could develop into a great player if he could stay on the field, he hasn't been able to do so. Now, when I look at this roster, after the NFL draft and some of our free agency, I don't see a whole lot of holes on offense or defense. I asked somebody recently where they saw the biggest holes on our team. They said at center and at linebacker, but we addressed those in the draft and free agency, and we re-signed Ryan Newsel. We saw him starting in 7 of the 17 games last year, and he filled in quite nicely. I saw one of the fans ask me recently, hey, who's going to stop the run with all this pass rush going on? But if you look at the numbers, the Falcons last year were the 23rd ranked defense in terms of total yards and points per game. But they were the 15th ranked defense in terms of rush defense. And if we look at third down percentage, 9 of the 14 playoff teams last year had defensive units whose opponents' third down conversion percentage was below 40%. In my humble opinion, that's a huge correlation right there. The Falcons were at 45%, and that was second to last in the league.
9th in missed tackles last year.
If we would stop some of those key third downs, we actually would have probably been a lot better against the run as well, too. There's 2 things that have to have naturally been happening, and the numbers say so. We were bad with coverage, and we were definitely one of the worst teams in terms of getting sacks last year. And the two go hand in hand, but honestly, I think the biggest issue we had was Jimmy Lake's just soft zone coverage and lack of aggressiveness. This year, we have a coach who's going to be a lot more aggressive in trying to get pressure, and probably won't do a whole lot of blitzing, but we're probably going to try to get pressure with getting 4 or 5 there all the time. And to be truthful, it's a little bit early, but I believe that we have the personnel to actually do it. James Pierce Jr. and Jalon Walker are very good on tape at rushing the passer. Leonard Floyd had 8 sacks last year alone on himself. And Arnold Ebiketie is probably the weakest link that we have on the edge, and he was among our leaders at producing sacks last year. He definitely, I don't think, is a day one starter. I see it being Leonard Floyd and probably Jalon Walker coming out of the gate. Speaking of Jalon Walker, I want to give a huge shout out to fan of the show, David Willis. In the comments, I was reading them say that Jalon Walker reminds him a lot of James Harrison. And no lie, I think that's an awesome comparison. Honestly, it's a comparison that I thought about when I compared him to Bruce Irvin, but I thought I was kind of tripping a little bit. But looking at the game tape, they could definitely use him in a lot of the ways that James Harrison, because James Harrison was a complete every down outside linebacker, a guy that could rush the passer, but also a guy who could jump in coverage as well, too, if you needed him in short zone areas. And Jalon Walker is a much better athlete than James Harrison was in terms of his speed and quickness. And he's a student of the game, just like James Harrison.
I think actually sitting down and putting the time in to be a true professional and learn, the defense, learn what you're doing. It's not going to just come to you. You got to sit down and study.
And he's a coach's son. He's definitely a student of the game. James Harrison was always affecting plays, even if he wasn't out there sacking the quarterback. He's causing fumbles, getting interceptions. He has one of the most notable defensive plays in Super Bowl history. And I believe that Jalon Walker could do a lot of those things and do even more. They could leave him on the field and have him rushing the passer, but also have him dropping into coverage. But the biggest reason I think that he definitely reminds me of James Harrison is their build. They're both kind of stocky in the lower body. Both have low centers of gravity, and except Jalon Walker's a little bit taller than James Harrison, but they're both really strong guys. If you look at them, they jack up offensive linemen and guys that outweigh them by a good 40 or 50 pounds, maybe even 60 pounds. But I believe Jalon Walker's a lot better of an athlete. He's definitely faster. His football instincts may not be there all the way, but he's a first-round draft pick, whereas James Harrison was a guy that was undrafted. And I believe that they both got that dog in them that you want to see out there. Now, having Jalon Walker definitely allows them to have a lot of versatility. A lot of fans talk about the front seven, and they talk about your front four and getting pressure with four. But I think that a very underrated concept with NFL defenses these days is a front six. Most of the time, teams are throwing 60% or more, and they have 3 receiver sets or better on 60% of the time, sometimes even 70%. In those scenarios, you want to play a lot more positionless football, as I was saying before. But there's going to be a lot more guys who could cover the pass, which gives you a lot more safety play and a lot more defensive back play. You're probably going to have 2 dedicated down, true defensive linemen, and then you're going to have 2 edge guys who are kind of like linebackers and speed rushers. You're going to have 2 linebackers, if not 1. I could definitely see a world where you got James Pierce, Leonard Floyd, Walker with Caden Ellis, and Ruka Roro, and David Onyemata. We won't know a whole lot more until they get into camp and they actually put the pads on. But one thing's for certain, Jesse Bates believes that the Falcons have one of the best safety rooms in the NFL. And I agree. There's been a lot of talk so far about how Xavier Watts is really great as a safety. And I love the draft pick of Bowman. We signed Fuller in the offseason, who I definitely believe is going to play a lot for us on a lot of different packages. And we know for certain that Jesse Bates is going to be a starter. And don't forget about DeMarco Hellams out there. Also on the edge, Braylon Trice, who's still not into OTAs yet and still healing up, I believe is going to have a huge role for this team as well, too. So I love everything we're doing. I don't dislike our chances at stopping the run this year. And I think our defense could be a lot better because we're a lot deeper in some of the rotational guys that we have this year. If there is one space that I'd like to see us improve at, it probably could be cornerback. And I've seen him talking about us going and getting Jalen Ramsey. That's not a move that I'd really like to make at this point in his career. He's over 30 years old, and guys started to lose a step at that point in their career. And I don't know if I'd want to give him that type of money moving forward right now. But a name that I'd definitely be interested in going after is Asante Samuel Jr., if he's available still as camp comes. And it just kind of depends on what the numbers are going to be. He's a guy who's been injured a good amount, and that's really the only concern with him. His gameplay has been solid and awesome. The only reason the Chargers haven't re-signed him right now is because he's been injured so much. And as they say, the best ability is availability. So I do have a little bit of injury concern with him, but that being said, I don't expect the Falcons to make any additional signings until camp comes around, and probably toward the end of it, going into preseason. There's been trade rumors afloat about the Falcons actually entertaining trade conversations for Kyle Pitts. They're saying that they want at least a day 2 pick, which would amount to a 2nd round or a 3rd round pick. If I'm another team, I definitely would want to trade for Kyle Pitts, but I'm going to try to talk the Falcons down based on what his output has been so far and what his stats are. And rightfully so. That's how business is basically done. You want to try to get the cheapest price for the best product that you can get. Both the Falcons and Kyle Pitts seem that they'd be okay with this, but they both seem to love the current situation for both of them. And honestly, I feel like this would definitely contradict what the Falcons are trying to do as far as a win-now mode situation. If they got rid of Kyle Pitts, they wouldn't be able to just replace him at tight end automatically. Not every team in the league has a tight end that has 600 yards or better receiving on only like 70-something targets at that. Ray-Ray McCloud on about 13 to 14 more targets. He has 84 more yards and 15 more receptions. He's actually done a lot less with his receptions than Kyle Pitts. When we look at Kyle Pitts and we look at Ray-Ray McCloud ain't never in his life in college or in the pros hit 1,000 yards receiving, but Kyle Pitts has. And that's no disrespect to Ray and what he's done in his career. He's definitely been an outstanding player, and he earned a lot of the targets he had last year. I just think that there's a better way to get all of your best players on the field. We definitely hear Zach Robinson saying that Kyle Pitts needs to work on a lot of other things to become better and to be able to be on the field a lot more, as well as Raheem Morris. And it can't be everybody is wrong and Kyle Pitts is right. So I definitely see the validity in that.
Here's a perspective that I got last year because I was curious why Kyle Pitts has never developed. And
Right.
this is someone who's in a position to understand and know. And I'm going to paraphrase here because obviously we try to protect our sources. The issue with Kyle is he's hard to throw to because he doesn't have a natural feel and route craft. Ryan figured out how to throw to him and helped him get to the Pro Bowl in his rookie year. The other issue is the injury he had in 2022. It slowed him down, and he may not be able to ever run like he did before.
Right.
So
what was that first line about, the route tree, natural feel? Like, hey, slow down in the hole here, right? Don't run yourself back into coverage. Or like we talk about sometimes with great receivers and route runners, they know how to lean defenders, lean on them, lean me this way because I'm about to go boom and go that way, right?
You think that they can easily just replace what Kyle Pitts brings to that offense?
If you want to put name to name, no. If you want to put productivity into what he was doing, yeah. It depends on what the Falcons trying to do when it comes to the tight end.
You think that the Falcons lost faith in him, or you think Kirk Cousins had no faith in him? Because he had his biggest catch of the season with Penix out there.
Yeah, I know it. I know he did. He did the biggest catch of the season, and then he was like, "Oh, there go Pitts."
Right.
Then he disappeared again.
But if he's not good at blocking, don't ask him to block. And I think that you got to find a way to give him the ball a lot better and just get him more targets. He's got to get more than 74 targets. I mean, look, 600 yards on only 47 receptions. What would it look like if we gave him just 70 receptions, 65 receptions? The last time Kyle Pitts was given 60 or more receptions, he gave us 1,000 yards. And I believe he could do it again. Now, that remains to be seen, and I don't want to be speaking out for him, but this is a huge contract year for him. Moving on to our next topic, legends Julio Jones, Roddy White, and Harry Douglas came out with a podcast recently. And one common denominator I noticed on that show was an affinity for the absurdity of the moves that Kyle Shanahan either made or the things that he said. Roddy White says that Kyle Shanahan said that he doesn't think that he's a top 4 receiving option on the team at the time.
He would literally go through practice scripts and I would get the ball at practice, right? And then when we go into games, like he would sub me out.
You can hear Matt. We've seen right now. We can hear him.
Get Roddy out. I was like, you gotta be real with me, man. He was like, I just don't see you as like the top 4 options on the team. He was like, yeah, if the game was on the line, I would throw the ball to who? I would throw the ball to Shakeup Tammy. I would throw the ball to Leonard Hankerson.
And Julio Jones questions not getting more targets in the 28-3 Super Bowl comeback that the Falcons lost in. Who am I to argue with legends? I don't want to be disrespectful at all to a great legend, but when Roddy White left the Falcons, he didn't play anywhere else. He's about 34 years old. Receivers tend to lose a step, but wide receivers aren't usually typically very productive later in their careers. And Roddy White had clearly lost a step at that point in time. But he might have a point. Shanahan makes a lot of crazy moves, and I'm not sure that I agree with Julio that he should have had a lot more receptions. Julio had one of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history and one of the most clutch moments of all time.
Extra men on the rush. Ryan steps through it, throws on the run. I have no idea how Matt Ryan gets this ball in there and how Julio Jones is able to make that catch and keep his feet in bounds.
And the Patriots were definitely rolling coverage to him a lot that game. But if there is one thing I agree with them on, is that Kyle Shanahan makes some crazy moves. First of all, at about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, there was a huge key 3rd down and 1 where he opted to pass the ball instead of running the ball. And that was a huge mistake right there. Then later on in the game, with about 4 minutes on the clock, 2nd down, Shanahan does not run the ball. He didn't run any time off the clock at all. That was a huge mistake as well. Seen Shanahan lose 3 Super Bowls, and he definitely blew at least 2 of them. One with the Falcons, and one of the ones with the San Francisco 49ers as a head coach. In both of those instances, he didn't run the ball enough. And in the 3rd instance, he ran the ball too much and didn't pass the ball at key moments. He had a huge miss in the 1st round on quarterback evaluation with going for Trey Lance at a number 3 pick. And the weirdest part of it is we still have Falcons fans who wish that we would have never let Shanahan walk. I think he's one of the biggest contributing factors of one of the worst moments in Falcons history. Falcons rookie cornerback Cobee Bryant got very disrespectful with league MVP Lamar Jackson in one of his recent Snapchats, him to being basically the James Harden of NFL quarterbacks, saying that he's really good in the regular season but bad in the postseason. Now, either this kid's really got a set of stones or he's making one of the dumbest mistakes by a rookie ever. We're talking about an undrafted free agent, and I don't want to be disparaging. That's a hell of a move to make when you're not even sure that you're going to make the team yet. And I don't know if I'd be talking about a legend like Lamar Jackson. He's a guy that doesn't bother anybody, really. I think he's very highly respected around the league by a lot of players. One of those guys that pretty much nobody has anything bad to say. You never hear about him any really controversy or anything bad at all. He just kind of minds his own business, dresses nice, and kicks ass on the football field. So if I'm Cobee, I'm not sure I want to be sitting by the chimney steps for that type of smoke. Now, this definitely draws a lot of eyes to him in the season coming up, in minicamp and preseason and everything. But everybody in this league's got to perform, but you better definitely be able to back up what you're saying now at this point. What do you guys think? Is it disrespectful or doggish? All right, guys, that's our show for today. Like I said, hit that like and subscribe button if you're liking what we're doing over here on Point Game Official. C-Mo and C. Mitchell, Point Game Official, checking out, baby. Peace.